Hello and welcome everyone to a rejuvenated, relaunched, rebranded and reposted out first class mailed BetaCast with me, Simon Smith, and of course, Ben Williamson.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm delighted to be back, to be taken out of my box in the cupboard and allowed to play once again.
Oh, I tell you what, it took me ages to get
well, we were
AAA
overdue
batteries.
for a second run.
Yeah, exactly. We've done some BetaCasts beforehand. They're available, I believe, on iTunes and so on and so forth to download. I think.
That they are indeed.
Amazing. Cool. But yes, I've had mega busy life. Just essentially all of my family decided to keel over and die at variously annoying intervals, which meant that as soon as I was over one and sorted it out, the next one decided to go. So that put me out of action. And I think life just accounted for you.
Yeah, just life. Isn't that the symptom of everything?
I know. I wish life could just stop for a little bit. Not like entirely, but...
No, not forever.
No, but just enough so that I can have some fun time.
All right. No, I was about to suggest you were sort of implying you wanted a nice, relaxing coma.
Oh, as long as I'm surrounded by everything that I can do. I could have a coma in a games room. That would be alright.
Or like an Inception-style coma, where you're in a coma but you're playing games in your mind.
Ah, yes. As long as I'm not going slow motion off the back of a car, off the back of a bridge.
No,
2 hours.
No, definitely not that. Definitely not that.
Longest car crash ever's.
Well then, sir, should we get into it?
Let's do it. Keeping me on track already. Okay.
I know. Yeah, I just thought we could have a quick chat about, since we've last been together, what's come out, what we've been playing, what we're interested in. So lay it on me, brother.
Well, I've been most recently playing Grid 2.
It's funny you say that, because I'm a big fan of the Codemasters Racing titles, but Grid's always been something I've stayed away from, because I always envisioned it when the first game came out as being sort of a spiritual successor to something like Toka Touring Cars, and then I looked into it and it wasn't.
No,
it just wasn't.
No, and the problem with Grid 2 is that it's a very good single player game, but the mechanics of it is that it's gone a bit drift happy between the first one and the second one. The first one was really I thought it was quite close to Toka Race Drivers, those kind of things, because it's kind of an extension of that. But the second one, it's really Americanized it and it's gone drift happy, and that really ruins it when you're trying to play it online, because people just drift into corners and smack you out, and it seems to really overplay drifting as an element in a game. And unless you're Mario Kart or Sonic All-Stars Transformed, that kind of ilk, drifting for me should stay in that box and not as part of a quote-unquote realistic driving experience.
No, I completely agree with you, because that's the thing as well. I mean, drifting, yeah, sure, it's fun, but you are going about 2 miles per hour the entire way through the corner. I mean, you're not going to win the race doing that. I don't understand why people have this idea that it's a smart thing to be doing.
No. But it's a shame, because the graphics are great. Love the career style of it all, and it's got lots of different elements, and a lot of fun stuff carries over from the Dirt series of all like party games and things like that you can do. But yeah, that you just don't play it with other people, because it normally descends into utter chaos, because you have to drift to kind of keep your speed up, but unless you're chucking mushrooms or tornadoes at each other, yeah, doesn't quite work.
It's not for you. But that's the thing, though, isn't it? I mean, to be fair, I reckon that could be said about most multiplayer games. Play them, but don't play them with anybody.
Yeah.
Unless it's people that are in your living room that you can backhand slap when they get out of line. Just don't. Just don't.
What about you? What's your latest thing that you've been on?
Well, to be honest, I when we were last recording this, we were talking, as I recall, about being a little bit burned out and finding it hard to focus on any one title, and that's only improved moderately. I've got quite invested in PlanetSide 2, actually, because it's a game that just across the board seems to have been patched to the degree that it runs really smoothly and really well, even though I've got a quite poor internet connection over here. So I've been spending quite a lot of time on that. And to be fair, most of the people you come across are okay. I mean, you do get backed over by a tank occasionally, but other than that, I've had quite a lot of fun with it. What surprised me is how much time I've managed to put into it, despite being across the board awful at it. Because how it works is like most FPSs, I suppose. Now, you start out with nothing, and then you build up sort of skill certifications to unlock fancier weapons and different vehicles and stuff. And this is actually a really time-consuming process. I mean, I know it's free to play, and to be fair, it's free to play done as well as one can expect. By playing for free, you're at a massive disadvantage. I think you 50 to 75% less experience for any single action if you're playing for free. So it would literally take you a decade to unlock all the good stuff that you want. So I signed up as a premium member, and I've specced into various different trees trying to find my niche. It turns out I don't have a niche. My niche is being dead. I'm the cannon fodder.
You're the meat.
But I mean, but the thing is like, you'd think that'd get really old and really boring, when you've got a pitiful kill to death ratio and you're being blown up every 2 minutes. But the one thing that game does really, really well is you get this really almost operatic feel of being involved in this just massive sweeping conflict. You see so many people, and you suddenly realise that it's not about your individual statistics, it's about your contribution to the effort. And I figure being a bullet sponge is a valid job. If I'm having my dentistry reworked by an explosive, then someone else isn't. Someone with better aim than me can charge forward. It's a bit like a trench mentality, going over the top. You just run into this hail of enemy fire, and hopefully the more skilled people make it to the other side.
You're buggered, but you're helping the cause in general.
Exactly. I mean, it's a very British thing to do. Go on, there's a good chap over the top, off you run.
Told my mother I loved her.
Yeah, exactly. And but other than that, I've just been keeping my eye on what's coming out, because there's some really good stuff come out on early access. I'm just scrolling through my Steam now, and I see you and I have both got our eye on the same title.
Oh, what's that?
Sir, You Are Being Hunted.
Yes.
How good does that look? I'm talking about it as if I've played it, but I haven't yet. But I mean, the feature list just sounds brilliant.
And it's something that appeals to me because it's twisting on what everyone else has already done. Yeah,
it's got that element of originality to it. And I like the top hat tweed wearing robots as well. I mean, that's a really good touch. I'll just run down the feature list for you. I mean, what is not to like? You've got first person stealth and survival, procedurally generated British landscape, 3 biomes to explore: rural, mountainous, and fenland. Infinite replayability in a sandbox world. That's always a feature I question, to be honest.
Yes.
Powerful, brutal AI that becomes tougher as you play.
Oh.
And then we get onto the best features. You've got tea and biscuits, foliage-based stealth system, scavenge to survive, play as a sir or a madam, and relentless Britishness.
So relentless Britishness, because I'm thinking things like American Werewolf in like London type thing, or
It's got that sort of look, hasn't it? It's all very misty and
all very let's go down the country pub and have a murder.
Yeah.
Type thing.
Where's my spaniel? Let's go for a murder.
Yeah. And shoot a rabbit while we're at it.
And apparently the key is to not just survive, but make it home in time for tea with the assistance of the disembodied voice of Walters, your butler. I'm sorry, this sounds possibly the best game that's on early release at the moment. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah. Sidestepping ever so slightly from Steamage onto my rhythm action obsession. I'm so pleased that Miku Hatsune Project Diva F got released outside of Japan after I'd bought it as an import, sadly, because everyone deserves J-pop happy, button mashing fun with women who are synthesized big boobed, purple haired robots.
I completely agree. I was going to say it's very altruistic of you, Simon, to wish to share that with everybody.
Thank you.
Everyone should have J-pop happiness in their life. But one thing I have to say though is that I just absolutely adore their naming culture over there. The titles of games that come out of there are just the best thing ever.
Hyper DX XL XL DX F Prototype Z.
Yes, exactly.
Extreme.
Extreme Edition.
Yeah. So there's that. And another rhythm action game that I highly recommend to everyone is Bollywood Wannabe, because it is literally, well, because it's done, but it's like a whole Bollywood film, but you're just button mashing and making them dance along to the beat, and then you have to like stop and do little like jigs, and it's all proper. Yeah, it's. You have to watch it to really understand it, but best with the music well up high so that you end up doing your own little Bollywood shakes, your twerks, whilst you're going along.
You do a Miley Cyrus all over the living room.
If I done a Miley Cyrus all over the living room, I'd snap my hip.
Well, another thing that I thought was worth mentioning, because there is so much actually to talk about that's come out and stuff and that we've been playing recently. I just thought, as a quick summation, what would you say from your Steam library is the best money you've spent? I mean, what do you think is giving you the most bang for your buck, as it were?
Whatever.
Yeah, just off your Steam library.
Audio Surf.
How many hours have you racked up on that bad boy?
Oh god. See, it's. I swear it's restarted since it's recently updated, but it was well over 70, 80.
See, and that to me is like. You can't ask for more than that. I think 70 to 80 hours in a game, I think you've 3 times your money's worth.
Yeah, and that would be more because I bought that as actually a disc and then it went on to Steam, so there would be more.
I would, my counter to that would be, I'd suggest at the moment that the best thing you can pick up on Steam is Kerbal Space Program.
I've got it, I've yet to actually dive into it.
Because, I mean, they update it so frequently, and it's still at an early access price. At the moment, it's actually on sale for €13.19 or whatever your regional equivalent is.
It's $10.79.
Cashback. Sorry, that was an accidental partridge, wasn't it? But, like, I mean, the updates are so frequent, and they're meaningful updates. It's not just, polishing out the textures or adding a cosmetic feature or something. I mean, every update is meaningful, and there was one the other day actually that's installed the groundings for all the science modules. So finally you can start monetizing your space activities and whatnot.
Wow.
But anything that's sort of sandboxy and you can build up something from scratch, I think just provides so much more quality time than you would get from something with even a branched story. I think you've just got so much to explore and dive into there. I'd say anyone should go out and pick that up. Absolutely.
Definitely. And I think that it does require that you have some creativity brain to it, because for people that want to have everything placed right in front of them so that you don't have to think of anything, you may struggle with that type of open sandboxy type game, because it's not put in front of you, and the whole idea is that you make your own essential game from it. So that would be the only type of person. If you must have it spoon-fed to you in a specific way, you might struggle a wee bit. Also on sale, Awesome Noughts. I'd thoroughly give that 2 thumbs up as well.
Double thumbs.
Oh yes.
Well, in closing, I'd say my final recommendation would be Xenonauts.
Ooh.
Have you seen this? It's
No,
it's like the spiritual successor to the original XCOM, because obviously 2K rebooted XCOM and it was a fantastic title. I really enjoyed it, but a lot of sort of the hardcore fans had a real critical look at it and said this isn't what we were hoping for. So this sort of goes back to the original sort of mindset. It's relentlessly difficult. Like I can't tell you how difficult it is, but sometimes that just gives you your best gaming experiences. I think when you've become invested in the characters, because obviously you train them up and they gain experience as they go along, and they become really valuable to what you're trying to achieve. And then all of a sudden, poor old Pat Butcher takes a shotgun round to the face, and you've lost her, and you're Pat, no. Because why wouldn't you name your soldiers after EastEnders cast members? That's what I do.
God. Oh dear. But yeah, I thought you had, but you can turn all of that on XCOM. I thought.
Well, you can, but I mean, it's about different things other than that, because obviously XCOM is difficult. I'm not saying it's an easy game, but you're limited to, I believe, 5 or 6 team members, whereas in the original games you had 8 to 10.
Ah, okay.
And then this brings in vehicles. It also brings in a much more detailed inventory system. So, like in the XCOM reboot, you equip your guys at the start, and then you launch, and then that's it. People have got what they've got, and they never run out of ammo.
That's true.
In my experience, I mean, I think it's possible, but I've not had it happen. Or maybe it isn't possible. Whereas in this, you've got to manage their inventory, and there's a lot more to consider. So, whereas you would just launch your interceptors in XCOM and let them do their thing, with very limited control, here you've got to make sure that they're fueled and that you've put the right weaponry on them and that they're in the right place at the right time. And the aliens can counterattack you, which they can't in XCOM, and it's so relentlessly difficult. I would recommend it to anybody who's after a bit of a challenge and something that's gonna give you your money back in terms of the time you spend on it. Same goes for Shadowrun Returns. Actually, I'd say that's probably the best $18.99 anyone could spend.
Okay, that is kind of on a flippy around for me later on in life to get round to. Cool. Just whilst it's popped into my head. Recently bought a game called Remember Me, which is a proper like open worldy platform thing. Don't think it sold very well despite having a massive budget. It is amazing, loving it. You get to rejig people's memories in their brain as like a little side game thing, and end up starting to change the story and killing off people. It's quite fun.
That sounds incredible, actually, because I mean, to be fair, I considered it, but it got universally panned in the reviews I saw.
It has a really weird combat-y system. See, this might be playing into the fact that I love rhythm games, because it's very much timing based on what you do. There's some great ideas that are executed with like, what's probably the best way to describe it is if someone said, wow, I want to make an indie game that has got these really great ideas, but I'm not going to compromise on it, and even if it makes the game worse, I'm still going to put it in anyway. And then they've gone, great, let's give this a massive AAA title budget. And it's like a strange offset, so it would never satisfy core people. But like the combo system is very much timing based, and you build your own combos. But yeah, it does. There's some weird intricacies that takes a while to get used to. But I'm so involved in the world because the world is built up really, really well, that I can see beyond that and feel part of the story and everything that's going on. So I'd give that massive thumbs up as well. And Cloudberry Kingdom, if you have not played that, talking of hardness, oh my god. After this podcast, go and watch a Cloudberry Kingdom video and you will cry.
Yeah?
Yes.
Oh man, I don't need any more of those in my library, I don't think.
Well, the developer said everyone liked it when we showed the video where it was just hard, so we just made the entire game worse. I was like, no. But you can do 4-player co-op through the levels, although it does kind of get a bit messy because everyone's all like, what, and everyone's going to be dead by about the 3rd jump. So yeah,
money well spent there then.
I think there's one game that we can both absolutely say that we are 100%, in fact 107% looking forward to, that's coming out in a wee month of October.
Definitely. I'm embarrassingly excited for this, given that it's just essentially an annual reiteration of something.
But we don't care, we will be shamelessly unabashed. I think it's about time we got on and talked about it.
Yep, let's crack on.
So what is this wonderful game that we are talking about?
So we're on about F1 2013. For me, namely F1 2013 Classic Edition.
Yes.
Yeah, even though it does weigh in at €50, the possibility to reboot some old 90s and 80s cars on modern tracks, that's just super exciting to me.
Yes.
And
Done properly as well, because I know some people be like, oh well, I've got GP3 and a GP4 mods that I can download and play with. Yes, I completely understand, and I do that as well. But to have it on a nice up-to-date game that has been implemented properly, you know it's not going to break and there's no faffing about. Amazing.
It is absolutely amazing. And my only complaint would be that they didn't get licenses from enough teams. But I know a lot of them are defunct now, and it's hard finding out who owns the rights to what. I mean, Giancarlo Minardi and Paul Stoddart both own the rights to Minardi, but in different markets and stuff. And when you're selling the game globally, it's too expensive licensing deals to put one car in the game.
Yeah.
So I suppose there are good reasons for it, but I had hoped for more than just Williams and Ferrari, if I'm honest.
Yes.
But moving away from that, the reason I'm so excited about it is, we get to crack on with a rebooted and relaunched and sent first class post, as you put it, co-op season.
Yes, looking forward to that.
After we got unceremoniously fired from Sauber, probably. I have no idea. I mean, I wouldn't care for this on.
Yeah. Well, we'd got some points on the board.
You'd got some points on the board.
It's a team effort. La, la, la. Yeah, it was interesting.
See, I mean, here's the thing for me. You were talking before about grid and how it's sort of become a bit Americanized and a bit glossy, and it's not really about the racing necessarily. The one thing, I know lots of people had lots of things to complain about with F1 2012, but as you know as well as I do from sim racing, people will always complain about something. Like, they'll use the guise of realism or immersion. They'll say, oh, this is unrealistic because, when what they're really saying is that it's been implemented in a way that I'm no good at it.
Yeah, because especially with sim racing in general, because if the mod changes or year on year, and people are like, oh, this mod sucks compared to last year, it's not. It's because it doesn't suit your driving style as much.
Yeah, it doesn't play into their skill set. Exactly. I actually lost you there for a minute, mate.
I've lost you too. Are you back now?
I can hear you.
Aha.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. There's just a bit of a skip there.
Yeah, it came up with a box saying, we've lost you. No! DNF.
I'd flatlined.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, I still maintain that when it comes down to the co-op on that, though, that the cars handle differently.
Yes.
I have no scientific proof for this, and this is not me just, we were criticising just a second ago, people complaining about something being unrealistic or whatnot, but I'm trying to keep as open a mind as possible and accept the probability that maybe I just crack under pressure. But my performance is multiplayer, especially co-op, because it's the same AI difficulty, apparently, identical car, identical setup, and I end up qualifying 5 places below where I would if I was playing alone. I don't know if that's because I'm trying to cast with you at the same time, but I don't feel that it is. Because once you sort of settle into where you are in the race, you just sort of keep going and keep it on the track, don't you? Or we try to.
Have a go.
And bringing it round full circle to the point I was trying to make originally is that while Grid 2's gone Americanized and glossy and perhaps a tad unrealistic, the one thing that no one can criticize about F1 2012, which I'm sure they do anyway, is that it's a game that does demand as near a perfection as possible from every single lap.
Yes.
I mean, they say it's not necessarily realistic, or it falls down in this area, or this wouldn't happen in real life, but the fact is that even the tiniest mistake affects your speed on the track to such a degree that you make a mistake and you're eaten up, or at least I am. I am.
Yeah, I think because the field, especially the first 18 at least, are so closely matched that you do just tumble.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, it can be something as small as taking the wrong line through a corner. And the tracks I'm thinking of here are Turkey and Spa, for the most part. But there are sort of full throttle corners on that track that if you don't enter them correctly, you have to lift off to make it round the corner.
Yeah.
And as soon as you lift off, you never regain that speed again. That costs you, I would say, well over a second come the end of the lap. And for someone to say to me, oh, this game's unrealistic or it's too easy or something, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all, unless I've just got a worrying lack of talent, which is probably what it is. But, you know, to me, having to find that perfect line lap after lap after lap is a challenge, and it should be a challenge. And I really hope that that's something that's still there in the new game. That's one of my high hopes for it.
Yeah. I have to say that I really did like the way how the game handled in 2012, and I'm hoping for something vaguely similar. I struggled a wee bit with 2011 because I found it a bit too pointy squirty, whereas with 2012 I like the fact that you have to feather throttles and so on and so forth, and that to me felt a little bit more involved and so on. I still get confused with the KERS and the DRS, and now that I'm physically always doing manual gears, which is something I was such a lazy driver. I'd be like, auto gears, la la la. But now having done that, it does increase how your mind takes on things. And now DRS and KERS don't seem to be so much of a, oh my god, extra fingers in the pie. So I can get it a bit more now. So yeah, I'm really hoping for something very, very similar. Obviously a step on. I'd like to see more mix up of the strategies. I know we used to say about that, and then there was one race where we said it, where it's like, oh, someone is actually on a different strategy, but that was because that car was so far away from where it normally qualified, which makes sense. But this year we've seen a mix of different strategies, and that'd be interesting to see how that is played in.
Something I'd like them to bring back, but I know that they won't, because the people buying it would rebel so massively. But I'll take you back, if I can, Simon, to 1998, where a handsome young lad by the name of Ben was playing his first ever full-length F1 race on the title of the year.
Oh god, that's the worst one ever of the iterations.
Yeah, I know. It was.
Pick the right one there, not.
But I was playing as David Coulthard at I think it was the A1 ring, and it was a full-length race, 78 laps, whatever it was, and I spent the best part of 2 hours going round, and then obviously I'd been pushing myself a little bit too hard, and it got round to the last lap, and I had some kind of failure. I can't remember what it was. Smoke out the back, game over. Why don't you get that in the games today? Aside from the fact that people will just complain. They're just like, well, if I win or lose, I want it to be on my skill and not on a dice roll.
See, now, you could get failures in F1 2012. I thought you could. But you have to drive really poorly to get it, because it's things like downshifting from like 6th to 1st and over-revving the engine, and explodes everywhere. And that's the only kind of way of doing it. I think there's definite merit in getting reliability back where you are bad driving, like over-revving the engine to the point where it's like and exploding everywhere. That I definitely see warranting in. But I think it would be good to have it as an on and an off feature. A, because F1 is so reliable these days that you only get a couple of retirements per race. And B, you're right, people don't want to have that gratification of what they've done taken out of their hands so much. And I think if it's influenceable, where it's your poor driving that causes it, not just a random spin of the needle, you're out, I think that would push it too far. But in essence, I do agree with you as well, because I'm like, yes, purist, but I can see why people wouldn't want it.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. I agree. I understand why people wouldn't want it, but I just think that the game is poorer for it not being there.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I think all it shows is I know you're saying it's people not wanting gratification taken out of their hands, but to a certain degree, I also think it's that I think we're from a generation of very poor losers.
Yes.
I mean, I'm the kind of guy who I've driven F1 2012 leagues where I know I'm completely outmatched. And I will poodle around at the back in my caterum making up the numbers, and I'm quite happy to do that because the essence of F1, especially when you're in an underpowered car, is you're having your own race. Mm-hmm. You're not racing against the guys at the top 10. Your victory is coming home in front of the Marussias, for example, or catching onto the back of a Williams, and that's what you should be getting your gratification from. But it seems a lot of people seem to struggle with that concept.
That's true.
But then again, I say that, and then later on, when I'm telling you what sort of a semi-pro motorsporting personality has said about our driving, you'll find out that actually I'm just as bad as the people I'm criticising. But for me, I just think, definitely if it's attached to how you're driving, or to set up. Like, if you set up your car in such a way, because I know they say that tyre wear can be managed using the setup provided in game. Now, maybe I'm just not observant enough, but it seems to me that I shred my tyres whatever I do.
Sure.
And I know maybe that's a realistic simulation of the Pirelli tyres, but you know, for me to be able to get something like, say, a suspension failure because I've set up my car wrong and I've driven it wrong, I think that should be in there. And I know there was certainly gearbox and engine failures in the first iteration of the game, because do you remember when they launched F1 2012, and then for about 3 weeks after launch, every thread that popped up was, this game is broken. And the devs came back and said, no, you're driving wrong. You're driving like it's F1 2011. You need to drive differently in this game because we've implemented a physics engine and we've implemented X, Y, and Z, and you're changing gear too aggressively, or you're running with the wrong setup or whatever. Because I remember after about 3 laps, I'd get smoke coming out the back of the car, and eventually, you could no way of really telling when, but at some point something would give and you'd hear a bang, and that's it. The car would just roll gracefully to a halt, and that was your race over with. And to be fair, I mean, I did struggle finding out what it was I was doing wrong, but again, that's part of the fun. I mean, when I first got F1 2011, I'd not driven an F1 game in, well, probably since 1998. And so I insisted on putting it onto the difficulty where I was most challenged without making it impossible for myself, playing in cockpit view only and driving around in a Marussia. I thought, start at the worst team and just learn, just improve yourself. And I think that's how those games are meant to be played, and nobody seems to agree with me.
No, but I tell you who does agree with you, and that's the actual developers themselves, because I've sat in on... I've watched some videos of them talking about how they would like the game to be played, and they agree with you in that actually, if you are in a Caterham, a HRT or a Marussia, you are battling in your own little thing at the back, and if you're able to leapfrog a Toro Rosso or Williams, magnificent, well done for you. And that actually that's how it should be played. Not that everyone's always on an equal level and everyone's doing this, that and the other. Obviously the options are there to do that so that you can equal out everything. And I think maybe that the co-op, and the reason why we think the handling is different, is because they've had to try and pick some kind of middling physics that match all of the cars, so it doesn't really matter really which one you're in. Yes, the power might be slightly different, but against, say, a Ferrari to a Sauber to a HRT, but essentially the way how they drive may not transfer over individually from team to team to an online thing, because everyone has to have the same. But actually, I don't know, I think you're right, it's neutered for it.
Yeah, I mean, because I like the differences, and I like... There's another gameplay element in that game that people are always overlooking, and they take for granted. It's that, like, for most people... Like, whenever I sit and watch a Let's Play of F1 to try and see where I'm going wrong, or see if someone's a better driver and I can learn their lines,
Uh-huh.
You can guarantee 90% of the time the videos, they're in a McLaren or they're in a Ferrari. 90% of the time. And if you watch a career playthrough, it'll be a quickest race to Ferrari, basically. It will be, what is the shortest route I can take? I won't start with one of the backmarking teams. I'll start at Toro Rosso, or I'll start at Force India. And then I'll use that to springboard myself up. And I'll play on a difficulty level that perhaps isn't challenging me as much as it should be to make me A, look a better driver on the internet, and B, get me to the top team really quick. So I look amazing.
And they do that mid-season swap change as well to try and incentivize it to get up quicker as well, which always annoys me.
And because I mean I'm still doing my season with Marussia at the moment, and I think I've just finished round 13, and at round 10 I got offered a contract with Toro Rosso, and I thought, well, no, I'm not changing. I've come this far.
Yeah.
I'm not changing again. You know, I've got a point on the board for Marussia. I mean, that's got to stand for something, right?
Whoop, whoop.
But the fact is, when you're playing Korea and the cars are all different and the development systems in play, I think to me that makes things the way they should be, because you've got to really consider when you change teams. The cars do feel very, very different. To me, a Marussia, when I first got into it, was like a roller skate. It was really light, it was really hard to control, and I was much more at home with a car like a Toro Rosso or a Force India. So, you know, when I'm on my first playthrough, I left Marussia for Force India, and I stayed there. Because eventually I got made the lead driver, and then I got to decide the development path, and the car was just suited me, and it grew to suit me even more. And if I go and play the default Force India, it does feel different to the developed one. It just does. So it makes leaving teams a bigger decision, but again, people just seem to completely ignore that, because it's no different to real F1. If you look at someone like Nico Hulkenberg, he left Force India thinking that you know, the year before Sauber was a better proposition. And then now, you know, I don't think anyone would disagree that he wishes he'd stayed where he was.
Yeah.
I mean, I think moving to Sauber has damaged his career. I know there's talk of him going to Lotus now, but I mean, if he gets it, fair play to him. But I still think that there's other drivers out there. Felipe Massa would be a good one for Lotus as well, I think. Now they've lost an experienced driver. I think they need some experience in that team.
Yeah.
I don't think Hulkenberg's the right man for the gig, and that's how it should be. That's when the RPG element almost of it comes into play, and you need to make the best decisions for your entity in the game world. You need to decide, is moving to a team that is on paper faster necessarily the right move? Because I mean, you can be tempted to make a jump to someone like Mercedes. I can't drive that Mercedes for toffee.
Do you know what, that is exactly the worst team for me, because it's got that high dashboard and I can't see over the top of it, and I'm like, I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah, and it's longer. It's got a longer wheelbase, so it corners differently.
Yeah. And I love the fact, you touched on it already, the fact that then the following year there's a definite hierarchy change in some of the teams. So if you've then made the wrong call and they've had a toshy R&D the previous year because they've been a bit wish-washed, even though in theory you're like, right, well, next year they were always better, all of a sudden they could then be one of the bottom 3 teams. It still seems to rank it in a bottom 3 teams, then a middle group, and then a top group, and people seem to like switch leagues or divisions.
Yeah,
but you might time it wrong and you'll be ending up right on your back foot again, and you'll be like, oh bugger, that was very good. And in that car that you've actually pumped in all that R&D to, that you thought you would leave for pastures better and new, is now actually kicking your booty.
Precisely. I mean, that's something I'm thinking on this playthrough. I mean, I've passed every R&D challenge for this Marussia. I'm now comfortably qualifying and finishing in front of the other backmarking teams. Is it the right move to leave? Or next year, could it be mixing it with the Toro Rossos and the Williams and the Saubers?
Yeah.
And to me, that's what you play a career mode for. You play. You don't play it to just go up the ranks necessarily. You play it to develop and to see the world around you develop. It's kind of like an offline league, if you will. But maybe other people don't agree with me.
That's why I used to like harking way back the Grand Prix managers games and stuff like that, because at the end of each year, not only would that, all the drivers would change as well, and you'd be laughing your head off that, like, I don't know, Pedro Lamy and Luca Badoer would be in a McLaren or a Ligier or something. It's like, what? Who made those things up? It was always a bit random, but I used to love that, because then you'd get it was like real life. I know they'd never be able to license and probably change the drivers now across the courses of seasons, but that's like a wish list if ever that could ever happen. And then they took their own driver attributes with them, so then you'd kind of see like how different people in different places would see. But I think that'd be amazing. But yeah, I know that won't happen, so teams will have to do for now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, because the Grand Prix Manager games were phenomenal as well, and there's just nothing that comes anywhere near them.
No.
But hey, that's a whinge for another time, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
Now, coming back to the co-op though, because obviously maybe some people watching or listening to this have seen our co-op playthrough and our ineptitudes laid out there for the world to see. I've been dipping my toes, as it were, in the world of karting, and I've got quite friendly with a guy who's run a team for a number of years, and I've had him take a cursory glance at our performances.
Oh God!
And yeah, would you like to hear some feedback I've got?
Oh, do I need a stiff drink beforehand?
I tell you, mate, you come away smelling a lot sweeter than I do.
Oh God.
I'll start with myself.
Okay.
The first question was sort of if you could compare them to a driver from now or recent past, who would you compare them to? And I got Jarno Trulli. He says you're a Jarno Trulli because there is a Ben train in the race. you know. And to be fair, we saw that in our co-ops that have been put up for people to watch.
True.
He said like
Ben train.
Ben train, baby. He said that like I outqualified you for most events, I believe, if not all.
Yeah.
And he said so it's clear that you've got sort of the 1 lap pace, but the problem is you drive like every lap is the last lap. And that's why you're shredding your tyres. Like I've just got no consistency at all. He said you just don't settle into a rhythm. Uh-huh. The driving is sort of a bit rough around the edges and slapdash. So, whereas a professional driver could drive for time. If you told them, right, we need to take a second off this lap because you need to conserve tyres, so we expect your lap time to be 7, 8, 9 tenths slower next time round. A professional could do that, or a skilled gamer could probably do that. But for me, no, it's impossible. I can't manage my own performance. So I didn't take that criticism too harshly. What I did take harshly was that he said if he was a team boss, he wouldn't take me on. He wouldn't give me a seat at all. Whereas with you, he would.
What?
He would, but he said that you'd be a development prospect. He says, like with you, you can tell that you've got more experience than me, and that your pace doesn't disappear in the race like mine does.
Okay.
It's like qualifying is perhaps something to work on, and keeping track of your gear changes.
Yes,
he did notice you shifting into neutral and stuff quite a lot. But other than that, he said that he would compare you to someone like Romain Grosjean, but this year's Romain Grosjean, not last year's. So you're not having many incidents. You're obviously maturing as a driver, but it's sort of like it's untapped potential. It's like all the basics are in place with you. He thinks it's just that it needs more polish, and you just need more track time or whatever. So I thought that was quite encouraging, but he definitely thinks out of the two of us that you should be the number one driver, even though I outqualify you. It's the race that matters, and you finish above me every single time, except when you're DQ'd.
Yeah. Oh wow. Ta-da!
So yeah, so we didn't do too badly. I expected far worse, to be honest. But
yeah,
the fact that he wouldn't
he,
even
like drunk or anything when he was giving these comments.
No. I mean, I'm just recounting from memory. Obviously, he's a lot more professional and detailed than I could ever be. But I found the feedback somewhat useful. I mean, to be fair though, he didn't tell me anything that I wasn't already semi-aware of. I mean, I know what I have to work on.
Sure.
But it's quite hard to. It's one of those things that's quite hard to work on, I think.
Yeah, because it's definitely taking it away probably from F1 2012 a little bit into sim racing where I play on other games, and that's why, because it was the first time that I was really back on F1 2012 when we was doing all of that for a while, where I'd gone off to do other stuff. I was like, this isn't how I do the gears on any other game, because I always use the shoulder pads. I know we're bad. I use gamepad. So I always use shoulder pads for gear changes in sim racing games, because that sets me apart from doing the Arcadia games where I use the X and Y buttons or whatever for it. I was trying to get back into the use of that, which is why my gearing is terrible. But in sim racing in general, I am always so far off qualifying pace, but I'm always much closer to the rest of the field when it comes to actual race pace. So that bears true in almost every single game that I play, and I find that really interesting that he spotted that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's very strange if you think about it that we can swap performance like that completely. Because you'd think, surely if I'm capable of putting down a fast single lap time, like surely the faster you go around the lap, but the fact is, like, consistently, if I qualify, say, 15th or 14th, which was I think the average for me in our game, I will inevitably fall back to about 18th, 17th or 18th usually, and that is where I'll stay. And I will not fall into the clutches of the cars behind, but I will not gain any time on anybody in front of me at all. And if I do find myself out of position, there is the Ben train, like you pointed out. Whereas with you, when I watch our videos, you're consistently catching people in front of you. They're never pulling out a gap on you. But I look at your lines and I disagree with the lines you take, but they're obviously faster. So I guess we've both got to learn from one another, I suppose.
Yeah. We'll be back properly for F1 2013. Ice Miller, a day one smashing into everything going on.
Well, I mean, I tell you what, if it's anything like the change between 2011 and 2012 was, there could be a problem, but I don't think there should be. It's just 2012 introduced real physics for the first time.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking I'd have to deploy a parachute to stop that car. Because you were right, it was point and squirt, wasn't it? I mean, it was a little bit sensitive. Like you couldn't accelerate and not be in a straight line with the DRS open in 2011. On this, you can corner with the DRS open.
Yes.
If you're careful. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still say 2012 is the better title for me. But
absolutely.
Anyway, I'm digressing. What we need to discuss is where we're going to be next year.
Yes, because after Sauber got rid of Kamui Kobayashi, not really their fans when they've got Esteban Gutierrez in, because that is his full name. Go figure.
So good. He named him twice.
I know. Apparently, because in Mexico you get named after both your parents' surnames, and so I'm assuming they weren't family.
No.
There's a sordid story in there somewhere. So yeah, you got named twice. So yeah, I think we could do a little mini vote potentially.
Yeah, I was thinking. I mean, I don't know if anyone's gonna be that invested, but we can hope so. Because you and I both share an affinity for the underdog teams.
Yes.
Would that be fair to say?
Definitely.
But we also want to be entertaining. So what we did when we ended up at Sauber last time round was think, well, we're playing on a difficulty level that means we're not going to be winning races. We don't want to play as Caterham or Marussia or HRT because it just leaves you so far disadvantaged that it'd just be unwatchable. But likewise, we don't want to be part of the pack and play one of the upfront teams. And I don't know about you, Simon, but I just can't relate to success.
No, it seems so alien to me. What
like,
is
you know,
this single-digit position that I'm in?
it's like I've had to come to terms with the fact that now I'm going to have to learn to dislike Daniel Ricciardo.
Oh, what with that smile?
Yeah, I know, and it'd be the same if Roman Grosjean ended up at Ferrari or something. I mean, I really like Roman, and I never used to like Kimi Räikkönen. I mean, I liked the entertainment value he provided, but I never liked him. And then he was at Lotus, and he became a much more relatable character because he was doing sterling work for a team that worked really hard and wasn't successful in, you know, a number of years. And now he's moved to Ferrari. There's just something about Ferrari. I used to love them as a kid, but they just strike me as this almost behemoth-like controlling figure in the sport. You know, I mean, like, there would be a budget cap if it wasn't for them and Red Bull. Because they're the ones that benefit most from there not being a budget cap, and they get a larger share of the TV revenue.
Okay, yeah.
Because hey, it's Ferrari, and I just can't respect that somehow. And likewise, McLaren. Like, everyone I know who is an F1 fan is a McLaren fan, especially if they're British, because it's the big British team. Really, I mean, I know there's Williams, but when it comes to success, it's McLaren, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And I just can't get behind them because I find it boring when they're on a winning streak.
Yeah,
I think it detracts from the watchability of the sport.
Definitely, and I think that's partly why poor old Seb Vettel gets booed on the podium now.
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm sorry, 4 consecutive championships is too much.
Yes, mix it up a little bit. I think everyone's like, oh no, it's another Schumacher era. No! Everyone starts self-harming and throwing themselves off the podium or launching Greenpeace things on the side. Exactly.
So, I think the only restriction we can place on the vote is that the teams that are ruled out are Caterham and Marussia, yeah? Mm-hmm. McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari. And then the thing is, where do you stand on Lotus and Mercedes?
See, now, depending on how up to date they're going to be with their actual things, in theory, McLaren would be more in play instead of Mercedes.
Actually, I'd agree with that. I would.
It's going to be difficult because it's been this grid has been quite, I wouldn't say as close as last year, but the variability between, say, Lotus, McLaren and Mercedes, they kind of do this like toboggan ride up and down, don't they? So they're either winning or they're towards the back of the top 10, and that's going to be quite difficult to maintain.
Exactly. And yeah, I'd be comfortable saying, as long as it's done correctly, as long as they are as half-assed as they have been this season, maybe we can include McLaren. But
I wouldn't say Ferrari, and I wouldn't say Red Bull, and I probably wouldn't say Mercedes either, just purely because I know it's going to have that horrible cockpit I can never see out of. Every year I'm like, I cannot drive this car. Whenever I'm on online modes where it's like quick races and you just get thrown a car, if ever I come up in a Mercedes, I'm like, oh, mum.
You know what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. We're going to come back to this video in next month when we're booting up the game, and it's going to be all comments just saying Mercedes, double thumbs.
No, you evil peoples.
But I was also talking with this guy about where he would, midfield only, where he would realistically put us. And what he said is now Ricciardo has gone to Red Bull and they've got 2 young drivers there that are not going to move for a number of years. It kind of makes Toro Rosso irrelevant. Yeah. So he put us there. Just, because it's just a drive for the sake of a drive. Like, there's no development potential there anymore. Jean-Eric Vergne might as well kiss goodbye to his career.
Poor guy.
So definite options then would be Force India, Sauber, Williams, and Toro Rosso, I suppose.
Yeah. And we'll consider other ones if they're rightly AI'd.
If they're correctly AI'd, yeah. Do you have a preference from among those?
Not massively, no, actually, to be fair. Something would kind of think possibly Force India, just because they are either at the front or the very back of that and never in the middle.
Yeah. I get that. I never used to like Force India when they were first on the grid, but I've grown quite affectionate towards them, actually.
Yeah.
See, and like Sauber and Williams have always been my two favourite teams left on the grid, and I've tried to love Williams. I really have, but the car in F1 2012 is just appalling.
I see now. I was doing my single player 100% career through that, which I've now had to stop for my YouTube channel because when my PS3 died and I had to re-get a new hard drive in, I've lost the save for it. It got corrupt in the transfer over, so I won't be continuing that. I'll have to start again from scratch. I really struggled with that because it seems to have a much bigger tyre drop-off in my head than other cars. Don't know why. I've just decided it has.
Well, maybe it has. Maybe it's just something that's hard to quantify when you're not sort of scientifically keeping track of it. But
yeah,
I'd say F1 2012. The two cars I was strongest in was the Force India and the Toro Rosso.
Yeah, Toro Rosso I liked. Yeah.
The Toro Rosso was, I think it's a derivative of an old Red Bull, isn't it? And it just goes where you point it. There's no drama in the corners with that thing, as far as I'm concerned.
No, it's just a bit down on power, so you won't get it down the straight so fast. But actually, if you want a nice car underneath you, that's well sorted.
And the same, I would say, will be said of the Force India. I always felt that if I was ever in a podium position in the Force India, I always felt like the car could expire at any moment. Like I'd pushed it so far beyond where it was meant to be. That you became acutely aware all of a sudden of the engine screaming as you reached the rev limiter. It took on an urgency that it wasn't there before. I don't know. It's strange how you imagine these things after you've done 50 odd laps and you're going a bit loopy.
So true.
But yeah, we would appreciate any comments or suggestions. Definitely, because we actually want you to watch it and like it. And hopefully we have no technical problems. We don't get booted out of races. See, this is the good thing as well. You can save mid-race now.
Ah, yes.
So in theory, as long as there's an autosave function, if we ever have connection problems again, it can put us back in to the lap that we dropped out from.
Amazing.
Which would be good, unless it's one of those times where we're in pieces and have been disqualified, and I've taken Felipe Massa out into the thing. Closing comment though, agree or disagree, I think next year's, this year in real life, the Sauber is the best looking car on the grid. Discuss.
Disagree.
Disagree?
Yes.
What's yours?
I think it looks blocky. It reminds me of the old 2001 Minardis, only slightly less blocky than that.
What's not to love about an old school Minardi?
Oh, because it's not Minardi. That's the problem.
Oh yeah.
I just pine internally. What would be my favourite? Do you know what? I really like the curvatures of the Marussia. Don't necessarily enjoy the livery too much, but I think that car looks nifty.
I see where we've crossed our wires here, because what I'm saying is that in terms of livery, the Sauber is the best looking car.
Oh no! No.
No, I thought when they launched that car, that was really striking.
It looks better in a picture than it does out in real life, I think. What would I say? I would go for probably the Caterham.
It is a nice shade of green, that, isn't it?
I do like the green and the gold. I do like the fact that Red Bull's popped a bit of purple on their car. Do something, for goodness sake. And they need to, I don't know how they can, but they need to sort of rejig the Toro Rosso livery a little bit so that it isn't just exactly the same year on year.
Yeah, I know. It hasn't changed, has it?
Bring back a yellow car.
Yeah, like a 40.
Everything,
40 yellow.
Yeah. Everything's just a derivative of black. A black, white, or a blue of sorts. Unless you're Ferrari, which is red. It needs something. It needs some proper, nice, striking cars back.
I see what I'm seeing though is we're seeing a move towards a more traditional look, right? Because this year's Sauber looks. If you Google the first ever or the first 2 ever Sauber F1 cars.
Yeah, before the Red Bull got the sponsorship on, they were black because it was Tissot and all of that, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same sort of shade.
Yeah.
And then you've got Williams, who have, to be fair, always been sort of a blue and white team.
Mm-hmm.
Caterham have brought back British Racing Green.
Yeah.
Well, they had. I don't know what you would call this year's shade. You know,
luminous,
yeah.
glow in the dark.
And then, you know, I always say credit to Force India, because their sponsors have changed dramatically since their foundation, and they've managed to keep the Indian flag colours going.
Yeah.
And making it, they're owning it. It looks really good.
Yeah.
And what I do miss though, and what I think is arguably the best colour ever deployed, was the blue you used to get on the Ligier.
Oh yes, agreed.
I remember
you could swim in that.
Because I actually occasionally watch old F1 races just because I miss the eras where money was just thrown around like it didn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, I think you've gone.
No.
It's okay.
Shawshank Redemption moment.
Are we still?
Well, to be fair, I suppose we might overrun our allotted time anyway.
I think we have, but never mind.
If you're waffling on about how they specially mixed the blue.
Yeah. Never mind. But no, the Ligier was beautiful car. Want to get your opinion actually. The additional circuits that are going to be included for F1 2013: Estoril, Imola, Brands Hatch, and Jerez. What are your favourites? What one are you looking forward to?
Brands Hatch and Imola. Definitely. I miss Imola, but I know why it isn't there.
Yeah.
What I am excited about this year, though, is the return of the A1 ring.
That won't be in the game, though, will it? That'll be next year.
Yeah, that'll be next year. But I'm excited for it nevertheless. I want to see it. I want to see it in the next iteration. Yeah, it's like a giant karting track that someone forgot that actually big cars can go around too. It is a cute one. I would say that to drive, the A1 ring has always been my favourite track. And I know that's blasphemy, and people will be heading their hands now. Why am I listening to this cretin who put him in front of a microphone? But no, seriously, I used to love that track, so I'll be really glad to see it.
It's good fun,
especially with the turbo cars as well.
Yeah, it's going to be.
That'll be an interesting game when that comes out.
Yeah. God knows what platform we will get it on. But yeah. It's going to be expensive for me because I will get it on PS3, but obviously we can co-op, so I have to get it on Steamage as well. So it'll be an expensive day, that one. But it's going to be fun. Any last comments before we wrap it up for boring everyone to death with our love of the F of the one?
Yeah, because we should bring it back to gaming, I suppose. I don't really have any closing comments, except that I've changed my stance, and I think it's perfectly acceptable now to pre-order an Xbox One. Controversial.
What? Why?
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing it myself.
Why?
Because we complained about every feature, and then they went and changed the product based on the feedback. So credit to them there.
So because no one was going to buy it.
Yeah, of course. But that's the implied deal, isn't it? Like, you complain about something, the company changes it based on your feedback, and the implication is, well, you can't just then continue to boycott them after they've done what you've asked. But the other thing is that I actually think, despite their sort of balls out mentality where they've been rather consumer unfriendly, I think that's come from a confidence in what they're going to be wheeling out in terms of features and titles. And I mean, $1 billion to develop platform specific titles, that's not a small amount of money. And the fact that I know the PS3 has functionality to allow you to stream, but I think the Microsoft functionality in that term is going to be better. And if I want it for streaming, because I am overdue for getting a new PC. But you're spending a serious amount of money for that, and you can still not guarantee that 2-3 years down the line the game's going to run optimally for you, which you can with a console. I'm a PC gamer at heart. I always will be, but I see the validity of consoles, and I think you have to buy into the next generation. And I wouldn't hold it against anyone for buying a PS3. I know on paper it's the smart decision, but on paper I'm also an idiot, and I'm going to get an Xbox One, I think.
Cool.
I just like the controller as well. I'm sorry, the controller is too big of a factor for me. I don't like the PlayStation controller. Never have.
The controller looks a bit long on the PS4 because it's got that like motion bar in the middle, so it seems a bit elongated, so it would take a while. Talking of controllers, actually, the Ouya, so much has been said about how cack the controller is for that it's really put people off. The Ouya really hasn't gone down very well since launch. I'm still looking at getting one at some point, but I'm investigating that. But the controller seems to be one of the biggest complaints.
They seem a bit of a dodgy proposition at the moment as well. I don't know if you heard, but they were running a competition where they would match the crowdfunding for Ouya exclusive titles.
Yeah.
That reached a certain threshold. And there's been a lot of controversy around that. Some very dodgy dealings indeed, where games were being funded to the correct amount, but with a tiny amount of backers. So, they were getting donations of $10,000 at a time.
Oh.
So one can only assume that perhaps there's some sort of backroom dealing between the developers and the platform itself, to sort of, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, because they desperately need some exclusives, games.
Yeah. Because everything's just kind of limped over from everything else, and I love their whole philosophy of you can trial out stuff, but I'm hearing things of like, my game has sold 6 copies and things like that more and more, and that's quite worrying.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want a video game crash. I tell you what could be the death knell for the year, and I really will wrap it up here, but the Steam sharing that's coming on.
Oh yeah.
Because what Steam has always been missing is a chance, because Steam don't do refunds, so when you buy a game, it's like going back to the 90s before patching was popular or possible. I remember we had this conversation in episode 1.
Yeah.
But basically, if you bought a game and it was bugged forever. Mm-hmm. And with this, I've been burnt several times. Like, you buy a game or you pre-order a game and it's crap. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
There is literally nothing you can do. And people complain about it, but I sort of understand it. Once you've got the game files and you've had your license, credit to the people who hack games, who release cracked files and stuff like that. They're very, very clever and very, very, very smart.
Yeah.
And you don't want to give anyone the opportunity to have hold of your game, dabble with it, find a way to play it without your verification, and then get their money back. I mean, no one wants that. No. But yeah, in summation, I think the ability to, for example, you buy a game or I buy a game, and the other one of us gets a chance to play it while the other one's at work. That only encourages you to buy the game if you like it.
Yeah.
I think it will actually do Steam a lot of good. It'll definitely damage the more open source platforms.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
No, I'll yummy that up. In a future episode of BetaCast, I'll be chatting about the fact that my 3DS arrived in the week. Only it came, I didn't realise, without a charger.
Exciting.
So I shall be portabling it away. Very new to the portable world of late. I've only really jumped on board this year, so I shall be talking about my thoughts on that probably in a future episode. But it's been fab to have you back.
It's been fab to be back. Don't put me back in the cupboard again.
Oh no! You're dusted off now. New toy. You're now so old it's retro. So therefore you're back in the books.
I'm back in fashion again.
Fab.
I am the Super NES.
You are 8-bit Ben. Done. No, thank you very much for coming along, and we will certainly be back in one form or another on your screens doing some co-oping over on the Higher Plane Games YouTube channel if you're catching us on iTunes or on higherplanemusic.com. And thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you.
Take care, and we'll see you all very soon.